So today let's talk a little bit more about Malaysia. And let's talk about Malaysia because I got this interview request by someone named Zurairi. He says he works for the Malay Mail, but this interview by email, I suppose, was for his newsletter. And he gave me the link to it. And so I checked out who he was. And he asked these questions that are kind of loaded. They kind of raise suspicions that he already wrote the article and he just wants to get some quotes from me so he could twist them out of context to kind of cement his narrative altogether. So this is about the US-backed opposition in Malaysia, these protests that they're trying to get going in the streets, how they openly admit that they're linking their movement to the protests in Thailand and in Myanmar and in Hong Kong. They're talking about the Milk Tea Alliance. This is a US State Department project to basically recreate the 2011 Arab Spring in Asia. And some of the protesters are even saying Asia Spring or ASEAN Spring. And so we remember how the US burned North Africa and the Middle East to the ground during the 2011 Arab Spring and onward. And now they're trying to do that here. So I asked him if he received any foreign funding. And if he was associated with any foreign-funded political or media activities. And he answered to me, no, I am just a journalist. Malay Mail is a private company owned by Ancom. My newsletter, for which I am writing this, is a one-man show funded by subscribers. You are free to cross-check this, of course. So I did cross-check it. I checked the newsletter here, and it says, it is written by Zurairi A.R. And he said he is currently serves as assistant news editor with Malay Mail, the East Asian representative of International Association of Religion Journalists. And anytime I see a name like this, I'm 100% sure that it is funded by the US government one way or the other. They all are. Every organization like this is always funded by the US government. So I went to the website, the International Association for Religion Journalists. And it says co-sponsored by ICFJ. Now I know I've seen that one before. So you go to their website and you go to like any of their financial disclosures. So this is 2018 Friends and Supporters. And you look and it's the absolute worst of the worst. The Washington Post, Facebook, Johnson & Johnson, Al Jazeera, CNN, and then Freedom House and Radio Free Asia out of the US State Department, the National Endowment for Democracy, United States Agency for International Development, and then the United States State Department itself. And so when I saw this, I asked him, I asked you if you received any foreign funding or are in any way associated with foreign funded political or media activities. And remember, he said no, directly, he said no. It says here you are the East Asian representative of International Association of Religion Journalists, which is funded by the ICFJ, which includes the US State Department among their financial supporters. So you either didn't know or decided not to tell me when I asked. Could you please clarify this? Do you believe the US government funds fronts like this in good faith, that your credibility is not undermined by associating with US government-funded fronts, especially when asking others about their criticism of such funding? Because his questions are about my criticism of the Malaysian opposition and how they are funded by the US government. It's not a claim that I'm making. It says they've admitted this themselves. It says on Malaysia Kini's own website that they're funded by the US government. It's not me just claiming this. So down here, and when I go through the questions, it'll all come together. But here he says, Brian, I feel due to your American worldview, you have made the mistake of assuming that I am beholden to answer to you. This is not the truth. But I have been humoring you out of goodwill. This is a person who contacted me first, expected me to take time out of my day to answer his questions, and yet he's unwilling to answer any questions himself. Why is that? Why does he think he can ask me questions, but I'm not allowed to ask him questions? So here's a journalist who wants to interview someone, but then when the person that they're interviewing wants to talk, they don't want to talk. They just want you to answer their questions so they can put it in their already, their predetermined conclusions and skew everything that you said. And then he says, to be honest, my involvement in IARJ slipped my mind because I am not employed by the organization. The position is voluntary work. So it's just a coincidence that he's trying to make this very poorly conceived defense of Malaysian opposition groups taking US government money. And when you hear the questions, you will see that that is exactly what he's doing. It's just a coincidence that he's trying to make this defense, that he himself is also involved in a US government-funded organization. I mean, the US State Department, USAID, National Endowment for Democracy, Radio Free Asia. The nerve of this guy to try to attack people who are doing what he claims he's doing. He claims he's a journalist. I'm digging in, I'm trying to investigate and see what the truth is, and I'm laying the facts out for everyone to see, and he's trying to attack me. That's what this was all about. Now, I have extended my good faith to you by seeking your comments on your heavy claims. They're not claims. I've shown documented evidence that this is 100% true. There's no denying that the opposition in Malaysia is funded by the US government. The Bersih head, Ambika, admitted that she took US government money. Malaysia Kini admits on their own website, you could go check it right now, that they're funded by the US government. So this is what the Malaysian opposition is made up of. People who are blatantly taking US government money and then attacking people for pointing it out. And they were hiding it in the first place because they know that it's wrong, and then they try to twist it around. And I'm going to show you how Zurairi, how he tried to twist this around and say, you're a white privileged male trying to speak over Malaysians. You'll see. So let's just get right into the questions. So the first question is, why are you concerned about a US-backed color revolution in Malaysia? Who will be affected the most? I think I just answered that. They're trying to recreate the highly destructive, deadly, regional destabilization of the Arab Spring here in Asia. And everyone will be affected, not just Malaysians on all sides of the political spectrum, and people who are apolitical and are just trying to live their lives. They will be impacted, but so will the rest of the region. Because this is an effort to destabilize the entire region. Malaysia is just one of several targeted nations. Oh, and another concern that I have is because I'm an American and it's my tax dollars being used to fund these opposition groups, I'm concerned because my government is interfering in the internal political affairs of another nation. The United States would never tolerate another nation doing this to them. So I don't understand why they feel it's okay for them to do it to others. It's in violation of international law. It is a violation of the UN Charter, and they're using US tax dollars to do it. Tax dollars that should be spent in America for Americans where it's needed most. The country is rotting out from underneath the American people because they wasted on things like this. Number two, regardless of a color revolution, it cannot be denied that the Malaysian government is authoritarian, and a backlash reaction from the public is expected. How do you reconcile the need for the government to step down with your suspicion of a US-backed revolution? Well, I don't know that they really need to step down, and I don't know that they're authoritarian. If we're admitting that the US is backing the opposition, any sort of crackdown on the opposition is a matter of national security. You cannot take foreign government money to try to overthrow your country's government. That's the textbook definition of sedition and treason. There are laws on the books in every single country around the world against doing this. If you tried to do this in the US, you would go to jail. It's not authoritarianism. It's called national security. It's called enforcing the law. It's common sense, really. Number three, has the new atlas considered listening to actual Malaysians who are directly affected by the government's mismanagement, or those who have been involved in the civil society for decades? Well, okay, so it's two parts. Actual Malaysians, yes, I've talked to them since 2011, since I started writing. The overwhelming majority of people reading my articles or watching my videos support my analysis. They agree with my analysis. They send me additional information to help enhance my understanding of the situation. A lot of them don't like the current government, but they know that the opposition is worse. They know having a US client regime put into power is only going to make things worse. So they ideally would like to have a third option, they don't, but they know the answer is not to go into the streets and join a US-backed protest. It's, again, common sense. And then as far as civil society, yes, I know civil society in ASEAN very, very well. Before I came out as Brian Berletic, I used to write under a pen name, Tony Carlucci, and no one knew who I was. So I would be in their offices, especially here in Thailand at Hoi Kwang and Sutisan, and I would sit in on meetings every once in a while. I know that they're dishonest and they're incredibly dangerous. I watched meetings that they would have with foreigners, like in Australia or in Washington. They would do the Skype with them, and they would be instructed to, you know, make fake Twitter accounts to help amplify the appearance of popularity behind certain campaigns. So this is what they were doing, and I know this very well. And then when I exposed their funding, they tried to downplay it or deny it. And then when it becomes undeniable, they backpedal and they make excuses. So they're dishonest and they're dangerous and they have no legitimacy, and they're taking up important space in society where real NGOs should be. NGOs that are supported by the people of that country, not some foreign government, and working to address the issues the people in that country care about, not some agenda the US is imposing on them. So yeah, civil society, I know them very well. This is why I spend so much time trying to warn people about them. And now the last question, this is the one that really raised suspicions. Let's listen. Despite the anti-imperialist stance, your position as a foreigner with white and Western background puts you at a privileged position. I literally have no idea what they're talking about there. How do you reconcile that to not talk over Malaysians and other locals involved in the videos, commentaries that you have published before? For example, Thais. It's real simple. If you're a Malaysian or Thai opposition figure and you don't want a white privileged American talking about your opposition movement, stop taking US taxpayer dollars and I'll stop talking about it. Now, as far as me being white, Western, and privileged, I'm half Italian, half Russian. When my ancestors came to the United States about a century ago, they were treated like second-class citizens. I was born into a working class family. I never went to college. No one in my immediate family has ever gone to college. Okay, so I don't know what this person is talking about, but I'll tell you what they're trying to do. They're trying to get some kind of moral high ground over me so they can sidestep the foreign funding issue and say, you're a white person, you shouldn't be interfering in our political affairs, when this opposition is literally a vector for foreign interference in their country's internal political affairs. And I think a lot of people are starting to see through it. I think I get questions like this and I get criticism like this from the opposition because the mask has fallen off and everyone sees what they're doing. A lot of people didn't know this because they hide their foreign funding. They hide it because they know what they're doing is wrong. So slippery, dishonest, dangerous. That's what these opposition movements are all about. They're taking US government money, and then concerned Americans speaking out about it are singled out and said, you're white, don't talk about our internal political affairs. What a joke. What a joke. So maybe I'm misunderstanding this last question, and if I am, I sincerely apologize, but otherwise, what a joke. And so this is the kind of thing that I get all the time. I get this in the comment section of my videos. And again, the overwhelming vast majority of comments and emails that I get from people in Malaysia support and agree with my analysis and provide me additional context and information. They're not happy with the current Malaysian government, but they don't want a US puppet regime in power. They understand what the street protests are, who's behind them, and why they're so dangerous. It's not that they're against speaking up about the inadequacies of their government. They're just not into repeating the Arab Spring here in Asia. They burned an entire region of the planet to the ground. They want to do it again. I'm trying to warn people about it. People like this appear to be, and I could be mistaken, but appear to be trying every little trick they can to sideline legitimate criticism and minimize, downplay, or cover up the foreign interference in Malaysia's opposition and the opposition here in Thailand and Myanmar and Hong Kong and everywhere else the US interferes. If you thought this video was useful, please like and share it. Think about subscribing. It helps the channel grow and it's totally free to do. Check the video description for ways you can help support my work so that I can continue doing this. I do not get foreign government money to do any of my activities. It is all funded by my audience. And to those who are helping, and even if you're just helping by liking and sharing because you don't have extra money to spare, that's okay, and that is greatly appreciated. That actually helps out a lot. So thank you for that. And as always, thank you for watching.